Welcome, Fantasizers, to another episode of Your Big Fat Fantasy, your BFF. I am Nicholas Logan,
I'm Anthony Bravo.
and we are doing our first Sunday show of the season. So I know it took us a few weeks, but we're back ready to be consistent for you guys, put up some good quality and quantity with our content. So we're going to start off today with the Thursday night football game. Bravo will start us off here.
But first, how are you, bro?
Oh, yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Just went to Disneyland yesterday.
Saw that, and had a good time.
Yeah, we ended up just sleeping the night over there. It was late, so, didn't want to drive back. Just got a hotel room, and, yeah,
Cool.
it was cool. How about you? How was your night? You went to the Dodger game.
Yeah, I went
You
to the
got a
Dodger
shirt?
game. I saw them win 109. I'm part of the healthcare, so I got a healthcare appreciation shirt, if you can see right here. And yeah, just wanted to sport it out for the first time on the podcast. So
Hey, he didn't want to keep his Elton John bobblehead.
no, I didn't keep my Elton John bobblehead. I traded it for Corey Seager. I found out that the Elton John was worth more, but it's okay. That lady was hustling. That hustled me, so
I would have taken your Elton
I
John
helped her
bobblehead.
hustle. So
We could have had it
that's
right
all
here.
That matters, honestly. We don't. We have the World Series ring instead. If you can see, was it World Series ring? So we'll take that instead of Elton John. But yeah. Going into today, the Thursday night football. You want to start us off?
Thursday night football. So it was a pretty good game. Won some money that game. So it was a good game. Besides the fact that your quarterback there, Tua Tagovailoa, got injured.
It was a very sad game for me. Yeah, man, like it was just bad. He shouldn't have even really been in this game, if we're being honest.
Mm-hmm.
They were saying he looked kind of disoriented out there, like a little like not really himself, even start the game, even before the injury. And then obviously he got brought down by like a 300-pound guy. I forgot his name, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was just bad. When you see the finger movement, that was just
Or the
just
no
bad.
finger movement.
Yeah, the no finger movement or the crossing, whatever he did.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a neurological reaction to head trauma, is what they were saying. So, yeah, I don't know how long he's gonna be out for. I would say maybe 3 to 6 weeks, but we don't know how cautious the Dolphins want to be with this.
Yeah, I think they're gonna play it as safe as they can, especially after all the criticism they've been getting the last few days. They said he shouldn't even have been on the field
Yeah,
in the Buffalo game after he got injured, and
And
he
then
definitely shouldn't have been in this game. So
they just fired the doctor.
yeah,
or
the head trauma
the head
doctor.
trauma
Yeah,
doctor. Yeah, so
so it's gonna be a big investigation. So even if he clears all the protocols and stuff, I still think they'll give him a game or two to rest up. But
yeah, and you don't know how this could impact like the future of quarterbacks. Like
mm,
if like God forbid, but if like somebody like Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert, if they get a concussion, like are they gonna be out for
for at
like
least a
a
game.
game or two
Yeah.
from now on?
'Cause I remember last year, I think Mahomes had a concussion. He was able to come back
Yeah.
the very next game, and everyone was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" But now
Yeah,
it's. I mean, like Hunter Renfrow, we'll talk about a little later. He's out a second game with his concussion, so he's already missed 2 games. So
yeah. So they could just be this guy got fired already. They're just gonna constantly improve this concussion protocol thing
Yeah.
that they have. So yeah,
Yeah.
it could be a drastic change for quarterbacks.
yeah, they really want to protect their quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's the moneymaker. So.
Yeah,
But I mean, what does this mean for Dolphins going forward? Their pass catchers. Teddy Bridgewater was able to step in for 193 yards, had a touchdown, interception, but he doesn't have the arm power, accuracy that Tua has. But with his weapons, he should be able to fill in pretty nicely. Last year, Teddy Bridgewater was the 17th ranked quarterback. That was before he missed the last 3 games of the season. And then 2 years ago, he was the number 19 ranked quarterback, and he missed a game. So
yeah.
when he's on the field and healthy, he's in that top 20 in fantasy. But with the weapons there, can Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill still be able to put up numbers like they have been with Tua?
Yeah, I don't know. Tyreek Hill, it looked like he benefited from having Bridgewater out there. He was still seeing him. He had 10 receptions for 14 targets for 25 fantasy points.
Yeah. So
If they can get open, if Tyreek and Waddle can get open, I don't see them, having a big problem. I don't see it being a big difference from Tua, but
Yeah.
will they protect Teddy?
Yeah.
Is that O-line gonna protect Teddy?
We'll see.
know.
And also, like, I wonder what they're gonna do with the running back situation. Is gonna be Raheem Mostert going forward or Chase Edmonds? I mean, Raheem Mostert has been getting most of the carries, has been on the field more more than Edmonds, but Edmonds has 3 touchdowns this year. Mostert has 0 touchdowns. So yeah, Mostert's on the field more. He's taking more of the workload, but Edmonds is the one that they rely on in goal line situations. So
Yeah, yeah. I think it's gonna be tough to tell who's really gonna produce until Tua comes back to 100% health.
mm,
But yeah, Tyreek Hill, man, he's the number one wide receiver in fantasy right now still, and
mm,
he just coming off a big 160-yard game. It's gonna be hit or miss. I feel
yeah,
like with the Dolphins from until Tua comes back.
yeah. And another situation with talking about receivers, talk about the Bengals receivers. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both having almost similar seasons. Jamar Chase has 64.5 fantasy points per game, or fantasy points this season. T. Higgins is putting up 63.5 fantasy points this season, only one less point than Jamar Chase. But the last 3 games, T. Higgins has steadily outscored Jamar Chase. If it wasn't for Higgins' bad week 1 where he put up like 4 fantasy points and Jamar Chase put up, I think, 24, 28 fantasy points, I mean, T. Higgins has stolen the show the last 3 weeks.
Yeah,
It's who right now. It's almost like it's T. Higgins. I think in that wide receiver room over there is the wide receiver one. That the way it's been looking recently.
yeah. I think this just comes down to getting a feel. We're about to hit week 4. In 2021, Burrow to Chase, they had 81 receptions for 128 targets. So Chase was catching the ball 63% of the times targeted. And this year, Chase has 25 receptions on 41 targets, and he's catching the ball 60% of the times he's targeted. So it's a 3% drop off. I think
Yeah, not
they just
much,
need
but
some
yeah.
they just need some time to
Hmm.
get it going. Obviously, Burrow's targeting Chase more still,
Yeah.
even though T Higgins is outscoring him. So
Hmm.
if Chase just catches two more of those balls a game, he's outscoring T Higgins.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I
I
mean,
just think it just comes down to time.
yeah, and I think Chase was kind of like unforgotten. Even on Thursday, had that big reception at the end of the game. Kind of the big play. Kind of gave him some fantasy value this week. But
Yeah,
other than that, what to see going forward. I mean, yeah, start Chase, start Higgins, and
yeah,
it's gonna be a fun team. Like I said, slow start. They're 2-2, coming off the AFC champs. So we'll see.
yeah. We'll see. Mixon, he's kind of been the guy who's been underperforming
Yeah,
out of all the
I
fantasy
think he had
guys
his
in the
best. I
Bengals.
mean, he could have had a couple more touchdowns last
Yeah, he could have.
game,
He could have had
and
a big game. Could have
so
had a really big game.
yeah. But we'll see. It should still be an explosive offense over there. But speaking of running backs, we'll take us to our next segment. Handcuff running backs to start this week. So David Montgomery, he is out this week. Start Khalil Herbert if you have him. If you're stashed him or he's on waivers, pick him up, start him. He's right now the number 9 ranked running back, and that's because he went off last week. Had 20 carries for 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, caught both of his passes for only 6 yards. But the Bears last in the league in passing attempts, last in the league in passing yards, last in the league in almost every passing category. We talked about Justin Fields earlier in the year and brought up his fantasy numbers and his numbers in the league, how he was dead last in the league in every passing category. So looking like the same Justin Fields as last year. So they're gonna run the ball a lot, and Khalil Herbert's gonna get a lot of carries going forward. And I think it's one of those things where he has another big game this week. David Montgomery's has to take a seat to Khalil Herbert. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
see why you're gonna. I still think Khalil Herbert has way more skill, better running game than David Montgomery. Not even on
yeah,
a fantasy level, but
yeah,
so if he has another big game this week, we'll see. I mean, even last year when Khalil Herbert filled in for David Montgomery, he was the number 18 running back in those 4 weeks. Not great, but he did have 2 great games against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers, who were top last year in run defense. So, he can run the ball well against really tough teams, and definitely start him. Definitely start also Jamal Williams, who is the number 8 running back this year, and that's because he has 4 rushing touchdowns this year. Kind of like that vulture to Swift, where Swift might get a lot of carries, but as soon as they get down in that red zone, it's Jamal Williams they're running with, outscoring DeAndre Swift in terms of touchdowns. So start Jamal Williams. They're going to be throwing a lot, especially with, you'll talk about later, the wide receiver room. All banged up over there in Detroit. So Jamal Williams should have a big game. Those two handcuffs definitely start. The one handcuff I would not recommend starting, CMC right now is still questionable. You want to check on that status. Come game time, if he is out, I would not start Chuba Hubbard or Deontay Foreman. I don't know who's going to be the backup over there, but definitely just don't even risk starting any of CMC's handcuffs. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Another player you want to keep an eye out for is Ramondre Stevenson.
Oh yeah.
You don't know, his workload could see a major increase. You got Mac Jones out, you got Jacoby Myers out. So we could be seeing a big workload for the running backs in New England, even maybe Davian Harris. As well as the New Orleans Saints, they got Jameis Winston out, they got Mike Thomas out. Is Kamara due for a big week? Is Olave due for a big week? You don't know. We could see. We got some Detroit Lions out. We got DJ Chark, Amon-Ra, and DeAndre Swift. So pretty much that entire offense is depleted. Will they even do anything this week? We don't know. Yeah. If they do, it's probably gonna be T.J. Hawkinson and
Jamal Williams. I'm not starting any of those other wide receivers in Detroit.
Nobody. Not Josh Reynolds. He's even questionable.
Yeah, I don't even know who else. Yeah,
I'm not starting nobody. But yeah, if they do have a good offensive game, it's gonna be Hawkinson and Jamal Williams for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny you mentioned Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, remember last year that game in Buffalo where Mac Jones only threw it like 2 times and they still won the game or whatever. And
that was a crazy game.
I can see the same thing kind of going forward with Brian Hoyer as the quarterback. They might just run the ball all day long.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick does not care about running the ball.
And I remember you being a Mac Jones owner. You were very upset.
I was. I missed playoffs because of that game.
You wanted to trade him after that game.
Put like 0.5 freaking fantasy points, man.
Yeah, that was a tough game. But
that was. So I can see them going with that same little, mindset going forward. Yeah, just run. And they have 2 good running backs, so they can.
Yeah, they could do.
They can definitely do
that workload.
And you want to speak about injuries? We'll talk about the 2 waiver pickups. Maybe these 2 guys have already been picked up the last couple weeks. Maybe they're still sitting on your waivers. But first, it's gonna be wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders, Mac Hollins. Hunter Renfrow is out, which we mentioned. Again, Mac Hollins saw a lot of that Renfrow target share last week. Had 8 catches on 11 targets, 158 yards, and 1 touchdown. So with Renfrow out, I can definitely see Mac Hollins getting that same kind of workload over there with Devontae Adams and Darren Waller, being the main focus on the offense, which should leave Mac Hollins open. If Derek Carr continues to target him, I would take my chances and start Mac Hollins this week. I don't see why not. I mean, they're facing the Broncos, which is a pretty tough pass defensive team, but take your chances, start him. Another guy I would take my chances is Richie James, another waiver wire pickup, wide receiver for the New York Giants. Richie James, he's been second in targets so far this season, right behind Sterling Shepard, who is now out for the season. Yeah. Sterling Shepard leaving behind a 28.9% target share, which was 13th in the league. So top 15 in target share. When now Richie James should
Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney. Wan'Dale Robinson's still out. Yeah. Kenny Golladay is dust. He's washed. Richie James, I mean, I would say pick him up, maybe stash him, see what he can do. But he has been averaging I think 10 points every game.
Solid.
Which isn't bad. Yeah, if he gets a little more targets and maybe a little touchdown here or there, you're looking at a 20-plus fantasy score over there. So
yeah,
look out for those waiver pickups. Just 2 guys we wanted to mention. Yeah.
Yeah, and so now we want to go into our next segment, our 5 favorite matchups. And starting from now, we're gonna be like keeping track of our win-loss record. So if we hit on these 5 favorite matchups, or if we miss on these 5 favorite matchups, we'll be keeping track of that.
Yeah.
So you want me to start it off?
Yeah, go ahead.
Alrighty. My first favorite matchup is gonna be CeeDee Lamb against the Washington Commanders. Washington defense, they've allowed this many fantasy points to wide receiver ones. In week 1, Christian Kirk went off for 6 receptions, 117 yards for 17.7 PPR points. In week 2, Amon-Ra St. Brown exploded for 9 receptions, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns for 39.4 PPR points. And in week 3, A.J. Brown had 5 receptions, 85 yards, 1 touchdown for 19.5 PPR points. But then the wide receiver 2, Devontae Smith, exploded for 8 receptions, 169 yards, and 1 touchdown for 30.9 PPR points. So you could pretty much say I think CeeDee Lamb is going to have a freaking an explosive game
Yeah,
this week.
and Michael Gallup's back, so
Michael
it should
Gallup's back.
open up the...
He could have a solid game as well.
Yeah.
This
so
Commanders' passing defense is not looking like they're even on earth right now.
Yeah.
They're just giving up so many fantasy points.
Yeah, a lot of points over there. Most of our 5 picks, we're kind of picking, like, obviously players you want to start in your lineups either way.
Yeah.
But guys,
These are just our 5 favorite matchups.
Yeah, and I would even
guys
say
they're gonna explode this week.
Yeah, and even these 5 guys, if you're doing any daily fantasy sports or anything like a FanDuel or over/under on underdog or anything like that, I'd say you start these guys.
Yeah.
Get them in your lineups, DraftKings, whatever you guys do.
Yeah.
And my first one is gonna be Jonathan Taylor. Hasn't cracked 100 yards or scored a touchdown in back-to-back games after popping off week 1. You expect him to go off against the Jags a couple weeks ago. Didn't. They fell late, got blown out, didn't try to passing the ball more. Last week against the Chiefs, you knew it was going to be a pass-friendly game going against a top offense. But I think Jonathan Taylor comes back this week and has a big game, breakout game. Definitely will be more involved this game, I believe. I mean, if you look at the Titans defense against the running back so far, Saquon Barkley had his best game of the year against the Titans defense. Josh Jacobs last week had his best game against the Titans defense. So Jonathan Taylor should be able to get back and show people why he was the number 1 pick in fantasy drafts this year.
Yeah, and obviously no one's going to sit Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, but start him in your FanDuel.
We just think he's going to explode this week.
Yeah, this is his week where I think he finally, I think his over right now is like 82 yards. I say smash the over on that.
Yeah.
And let it ride.
For sure. And another running back I think is going to explode, Saquon Barkley against the Chicago Bears. The Bears allowed 132 rushing yards and a receiving touchdowns to Aaron Jones from the Green Bay Packers on week 2. And they also allowed 80 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown to Dameon Pierce from the Texans on week 3. So I expect Saquon Barkley to explode against the Bears. He's looking like the old Saquon Barkley, dude that was juking everyone, breaking tackles. He has massive thighs that can break these tackles. So yeah, he was going off on week 3 as well. I saw him break a lot of tackles.
Yeah, definitely. It looks good for Saquon this year and Saquon, especially if you're able to get him in the second round of draft, third round of drafts.
Yeah.
I like Saquon a lot.
Super steal.
Yeah.
Super steal this year is looking like.
Yeah, for real. Looks like a league winner right now.
Yeah.
So, and then next up, my second player, another player who hasn't cracked 100 yards or scored a touchdown since week 1. Justin Jefferson. Jonathan Taylor was probably the first running back taken in your drafts. Justin Jefferson was probably the first wide receiver taken in your drafts. Both have underperformed the last 2 weeks, and that's why I think Justin Jefferson's bound to have a big game. They're playing in London tomorrow, the early game, so get him in your lineups. Get an early lead on your fantasy opponent. Last 2 weeks, Justin Jefferson averaging 7.6 fantasy points per game, but I think he has the skill set to have a huge game in London. Definitely put him in your lineups, obviously, and start him in FanDuel as well this week.
Yeah, for sure. Another wide receiver I think is going to go off, Michael Pittman against the Titans. Titans defense has allowed 6 touchdowns to wideouts this season. And a fun little stat, they've allowed 89.86 total fantasy points to the highest scoring wide receiver in every game this year. So
yeah.
That means the highest scoring wide receiver is averaging 29.95 PPR points against the Titans D. So if Michael Pittman's the highest scoring wide receiver this week, he's going off, it looks like, for 30 plus, 25 plus.
Yeah.
He was out week 2, but week 1 he had 27 points against Houston, and he had 15 points against Kansas City. So he's due for a good week.
Yeah, him too. And like you said, the Titans D, horrible pass defense. I talked about their rush defense.
Not looking good.
If you have players going against that Titans defense this year, it looks like just start them, throw them in there. But
they're due for big games against Titans.
Mm-hmm. Another guy who was another early pick, probably the running back 3 taken in drafts, Austin Eckler. Hasn't been bad this year. He's the number 14th back, but that's not what you want from a guy you took in the first round. averaging only 2.5 yards per carry, which is 2 less yards than his career average, which is 4.5. So has not been running the ball very well. But he's still getting the receptions, which a lot of people why they like Austin Eckler, especially in PPR formats. I read somewhere he's on pace for almost 120 receptions this year, so crazy amount for a running back. And he should see those receptions tomorrow as well. I mean, no Keenan Allen again. And Austin Eckler also has not scored a touchdown this season. I think tomorrow's the day he does it. He finally gets paid dirt.
Yeah,
So.
hopefully Herbert has had time to heal his ribs. Hopefully he's feeling better because at the game I was at, he was looking super inaccurate. So
Yeah.
hopefully he's had time to work on himself this week.
Hopefully.
But yeah, a guy I think is gonna go off against the Cleveland Browns is gonna be Drake London. London's been consistent all year, averaging 17.13 PPR points a game. And the Browns allowed rookie wide receiver Garrett Wilson to score 20 points with 102 receiving yards, 8 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. So they could allow this rookie wide receiver to go off, and he was drafted higher than Wilson. So,
Yeah.
I see Drake London going off against the Browns for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to have to plug him in one of my leagues, honestly. So.
Yeah.
Definitely Drake London. Another guy we'll talk about from that same game, Amari Cooper on the opposite side, on the Cleveland Browns. Last 2 weeks, he's averaged 24.1 fantasy points. Both games, he had 101 yards and a touchdown each game, which is why he had, that type of outbreak. And I see him doing the same thing again against, like I said, another weak Atlanta defense. If you look at Atlanta defense, the wide receiver 1 on the last 3 teams, Michael Thomas, week 1, had his best game of the season. Cooper Kupp, week 2, had his best game of the season. DK Metcalf also had his best game against the season against Atlanta. So all the wide receiver 1s popping off. Amari Cooper should get another 25-plus fantasy point performance. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that defense in Atlanta is looking ugly.
Yeah.
For sure. Another defense is looking ugly. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers because they don't have no T.J. Watt. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. So I think Garrett Wilson, wide receiver from the New York Giants, is due for a big game. I was just talking about when I was talking about Drake London. This Pittsburgh passing defense is looking ugly. They surrendered 28.9 PPR points to Jamar Chase week 1. 23 PPR points to Nelson Aguilar in week 2. And who you were just talking about, 23.1 PPR points to Amari Cooper in week 3. So, Garrett Wilson's looking like the guy over there right now.
Wait, you said Amari Cooper? Oh, yeah, last week. Yeah, against the Steelers. That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Garrett Wilson, man, he's looking like the number 1 over there in New York. I see him having a big game against the Steelers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, besides that 4 interceptions they had against Burrow week 1, I mean, they've still had a lot of fantasy points out there. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, another guy to start, won't have to go without saying, but Mike Evans, definitely start him this week. That wide receiver room over there in Atlanta is all questionable. Russell Gage, questionable. Julio Jones, questionable. Chris Godwin, questionable. Rashad Perryman out. So last week, there was no Evans, there was no Godwin, there was no Julio. Russell Gage was able to fill in, have a big game. That's Russell Gage. Mike Evans goes out there, and Godwin's not playing, and Julio's not playing, and Gage isn't playing. Mike Evans is a definite start, especially in the 2021 Super Bowl matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. Should be a very high-scoring game, I believe. Should be a lot of passing, kind of like the passing of the torch type thing, like Tom Brady was, the best quarterback in the league. And now it's kind of Patrick Mahomes is kind of trying to step into that role. So should be a big game. Both guys have something to prove. Mike Evans will be definitely having a big game, especially coming out that suspension. I think he's come out just hungry, angry, and just
both guys coming for revenge. For sure.
So we'll see what Mike Evans could do, but definitely put him in all your lineups this week.
Yeah, for sure. And that concludes our week 5, our 5 favorite matchups for this week. I just wanted to say a little pointer for fantasy. Just wanted to say, don't rely on last year's performance when deciding on players, or when you're drafting your team. Teams like the Chargers, who were very hyped up, teams like the Broncos, teams like the Raiders, they were so hyped up. And it just these teams need time to get it together. They're not going to pop off week 1. They're not going to pop off, it's going to take a couple weeks. So, yeah, it's just a little something I wanted to say. It's like
Yeah.
you don't always want to just rely on last year's stats. Like you always want to go with your gut. If you're playing a redraft and you have the first pick and you think Cooper Cup is the best player out of everybody, pick Cooper Cup.
Yeah. And so far, he's been the best
He's
player.
been the
So he
best
should have been
one.
the
Yeah.
number one, you know,
Your receiver taken, but
or
everyone's
player
so
even
high on
overall.
Justin Jefferson. Everyone's so high on Jamar Chase and
Jonathan Taylor,
and
Christian McCaffrey,
yeah,
and Eckler, whatever. But
yeah. So it's just
I mean,
what I want to say. Go with your gut
yeah.
because your gut's usually always right. If you second guess yourself, that's when all the problems start happening.
Yeah, for sure. Get players that you like and you're comfortable with. Look at
Yeah.
like Darnell Mooney this year. I mean, hasn't even cracked 5 fantasy points this season. I mean, last year was the wide receiver one in Chicago on a very poor passing team. It looked like maybe a year 2 with Justin Fields, they would have a better chemistry, but nowhere to be
Yeah.
found. Just some guys you just trust, some guys you just don't, and like you said, don't rely on those last year.
Yeah, and the Chargers wide receivers, everyone was so high on Keenan Allen, everyone was so high on Mike Williams, and Mike Williams did pop off for a game, but they haven't been as consistent as everyone was valuing them.
Yeah.
Preseason.
I look at the Jaguars too. I mean,
Yeah.
no one was taking Trevor Lawrence in drafts, Christian Kirk going late, James Robinson, Etienne was kind of like everyone's favorite Jaguar to draft this year, and like we
Yeah.
talked about in the last show, they're the top team right now in the league in terms of like fantasy scores and everything. So
And Kirk's a wide receiver 1 right now.
yeah, James
Number 8
Robinson's
in PPR.
James Robinson number 3 back, Trevor Lawrence number 10 quarterback. So
Yeah. So yeah, just what I want to say. Go with your gut, man. Don't go from last year. If you go from last year, you're just playing like everyone else, and you're not really gonna have a good time.
yeah,
If you get players you like, that takes strategy, and that makes you feel better when you win.
yeah. Another thing I want to say, just like a fun fact that I mentioned the other day in like our group chat, was like, do not start anybody with the last name Moore, because DJ Moore not doing anything. Sky Moore not doing anything. Rondell Moore hasn't even played a game. He's supposed to be back tomorrow. We'll see. Elijah Moore hasn't done anything. These are all guys that are supposed to be top wide receivers that you were taking, and nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
I was wrong about, DJ Moore. He's supposed to, Sky Moore I was wrong about. He hasn't played a lot, but I mean, still,
There's a reason why.
Yeah, there's a reason why, and like
Other guys are outperforming him. Guys like Juju.
McCall,
Hardman.
MVS, Clyde Edwards getting a lot of receptions over there. So
Yeah.
it's not a good year so far if your last name is Moore, but
Yeah, for sure.
we shall see. So just a little funny thing that we were talking about in our group chat the other day.
Which more do you think is gonna come out with the highest fantasy points?
Yeah, there you go. Who's gonna score more out of all the Moores? I don't know. I'm rooting for DJ Moore. I like DJ Moore a lot. I don't know if you saw that interview they had of him the other day where he was like talking about Baker and stuff. He just looks defeated, man.
I like Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore is gonna come out on top.
It's funny, like last year everyone was, or I guess, yeah, last year and this year everyone was like, oh, the reason Elijah Moore did so well because he didn't have Zach Wilson a lot of the games, and now that Zach Wilson's not there, they're like, oh, he's not doing good because Zach Wilson's not out there. So it's like.
Also, Elijah Moore was like the only guy out there.
Yeah.
Who else? Who was even there? Other receivers last year.
I mean, was Corey Davis even healthy?
Jake Crowder? I don't know.
Jake Crowder, yeah.
Jake
But
Crowder.
still, I mean, they had nobody.
Yeah,
Now
they
they
had
have
no
Garrett
fantasy
Wilson, and now
relevance.
they added Brees Hall. They added Tyler Conklin, who's like the number 3 tight end, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what Zach Wilson could do in his first game of the season.
Yeah, hopefully he comes back strong, man. I'm pulling for him.
Me too. Another guy that I'm pulling for. But anything you want to finish with, or?
No, I think that pretty much concludes it. Yeah, just get us more subs, man. We're trying to give away a jersey. We're trying to get out there. We're gonna be posting TikToks more often, and yeah, just keep a lookout for us on social.
Yeah, and all our socials in the description too. Our TikToks down there, our Twitter, our Instagram, our email. If you ever want to email us, and send us fantasy questions too for next week. So next week, on our Sunday show, 'cause we're gonna be doing these Sunday shows for the rest of the season. Now send us any fantasy questions, any advice you guys have for us, or any advice you need from us. We'll talk about it on our show. Speaking of talking about our show, our friend wanted us to give him a shout out. He sent me a trade that I still don't know if I'm gonna accept yet. He said I should accept it on the show, but I don't even know if I'm gonna accept it. So.
Say the trade. What is
it? I give him Gabe Davis. He gives me Michael Gallup, 2024 first and a 2023 second, which, I mean, it's a good trade, but I mean,
It's a lot of value for a guy like Gabe Davis.
yeah, but Gabe Dave, I mean, I'm just scared of Michael Gallup off that ACL tear. I mean, a lot of players have come back and, like, I don't know. I'm going against my own advice. I said don't rely on injuries because then you think that, oh, I don't want to get this guy because he's injured right now. Even Gabe Davis having an ankle issue, so
Yeah.
ankle has been bugging him. Missed week 2.
Dropping a lot
Dropping
of
balls last week, like dropped like 3 or 4 catches.
Easy catches.
Questionable again this week, so I mean,
Yeah.
I might take my chances and accept that, but
Not on the show.
we'll see. I gotta
Not on
still
the
think. I
show.
gotta still think.
We said on the show, but he ain't ready.
We'll see, but yeah, that concludes our episode. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in and sticking with us. We'll
And we'll
see
be
you
back next week.
Wednesday. We'll have the
Have a good
next
one.
episode. Yeah, thank you.